Hey there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and here I am in the car again, headed down to Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland for another new comic book day. Well, the big book of the week is definitely going to be the One World Under Doom, and I cannot wait to pick that book up and read it, but I'm also hoping Third Eye has the virgin ratio of that, so I can be able to pick that up, take it up to Fan Expo in Philadelphia later this year, and get Ben Harvey to sign that. I would love to do that. But like normal, we're going to go down. We'll do some filming of all the new books so you can see everything that came out this week. We're going to go back home, bag and board everything I pick up, and we'll do a little show and tell. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. All right, everybody, I just finished up at Third Eye Comics, and I had a great time going through all the new comic books. Can't wait to get home and bag and board everything so we can do a little show and tell. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
One eternity later.
All right, guys, I made it back home, and I bagged and boarded all the new comics I picked up. What a great batch of comics this week. The big book of the week, of course, was the One World Under Doom book that came out. Now, I've got that pre-ordered, a couple different variants pre-ordered with my subscription service, but that will not be in for probably another half month. But I wanted to go ahead and pick up another copy of the regular cover here with Ben Harvey. And I think I mentioned earlier, I was hoping that Third Eye would have this as the Virgin variant, and they did have it, although I just didn't feel like dropping that kind of money for that. It was $50, and honestly, I can live with this cover right here when I get a chance to get Ben Harvey to sign this later this year, hopefully up at the Fan Expo in Philly. But I also picked up this variant cover right here. I'm not familiar with the artist, but I did really like this cover illustration. This is by Rod Rees. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. I thought that was very nice. And I did pick up the Mike Mignola cover as well. Haven't seen Mike Mignola art in a while. I don't know if this is brand new, but I suspect that it is. So this was really good. They did have a couple of different other variants that I actually had pre-ordered, so we'll get those in at some point. I didn't feel like I need to pick up extra copies of those, but this is going to be really good. I'm excited about seeing this. Ryan North and RB Silva are working on this book. I thumbed through it a little bit. It seems very ambitious. We'll see how it goes. I don't think it's going to end well, but we'll figure it out. All right, so those were the Doom books, but it wasn't the only really big new book coming out this week. From Jason Aaron this week, we've got from Image Comics, we've got Bug Wars. And I've heard a lot of buzz about this right here. My guess is this thing's already been optioned at this point. Who knows? But this seems like it's going to be a really fun book. And for me, what's cool about this is just a few days after I picked this up, he's going to actually be at Third Eye Comics. Jason Aaron is coming to Third Eye for a signing. And so I wanted to go ahead and pick up the regular cover to have it ready to go to get signed. And I picked up the Peach Momoko cover as well. So I've got both of those. I'll get those into one of my window bags so it'll be safe when I give it to him to get signed. And if you guys get a chance, definitely check out the video where I talk about going to the Jason Aaron signing and prepping a lot of the books that I plan to take to the signing, including 3 that I actually cracked open from CGC from previous signings that I had sent and submitted these books to. And I've got other artists on there. And I wanted to add Jason Aaron to this. So I've got that video coming out at some point here, probably early March, where I talk about the difference between sending in the CGC for a signature signing event versus cracking open a book yourself, getting the book signed in person, and then resubmitting and having the autographs authenticated by JSA at CGC. So I talk about the price difference and some of the risks that are involved with that. So guys, I hope you will check out that video when it comes out. So I talked about signings coming up at Third Eye Comics, and it seems like it's a little bit of a theme this week with all the books that are coming out. So as I said, only in a few days, Jason Aaron's going to be there. But 1 week out, the following weekend, actually, Charles Soule and Ryan Brown are going to be there at Third Eye. And you might know that team as the creators from behind 8 Billion Genies. Of course, Charles Soule has been writing Star Wars books for years, as well as a lot of other books as well. Well, they're going to be there. And of course, their big book right now that just came out was Lucky Devils. And the second issue actually just came out. So I picked that up. But I wanted to go ahead and have a copy, and I can't find my other copy. That's why I had to pick up another one. I picked up a regular #1 right there to get signed, and I did manage to go ahead and pick up one of the Frank Miller covers as well. And I'll have at least the #1s ready to go. I doubt that I'll get the #2 signed, only because I've got so much other stuff to get signed by Charles Soule that they do kind of want you to keep to a limit on these signings, and I've got a lot of stuff for Charles Soule to get signed, so I'm going to cut down on the books. I'll probably just get the #1 signed on this case. And so next up is one of my regular pull books that I have Third Eye pull for me. I've got the newest issue of Amazing Spider-Man. We're continuing with the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man storylines, very magical. You've got Doom, who has given powers to Spider-Man, and it's very magical. And hey, you've got magic on the cover, and we'll see her again later in this episode right here. This right here is... what issue is this? This is issue number 67. When do they restart this? Honestly, I don't know. I know this is probably coming close to coming to an end, that they're going to relaunch, but I've been enjoying this a lot more than I had been some of the previous storylines, but I said it in the last video, when I get into some of this magic stuff with Spider-Man, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't mind it being kind of science fiction, but I like that down-to-earth, street-level fighting crime that I like with Spider-Man. It's something I like a lot better. I just don't like it when it's too fantastic with a character like Spider-Man. All right. So I've also picked up the second issue to Cable, Love and Chrome, and the character, the female right here, and coming off the top of my head, I cannot remember her name. Her first appearance was in the first issue, and I've kind of enjoyed the book, so I'm continuing with this book as well. All right, we're running out of room. There's a lot of books this week. All right, so as you guys know, I had already dropped all the new X-Men titles, except for maybe Wolverine, after about the 3rd issue. It didn't hit quick enough for me, and I just dropped them real quick. But I kind of got on in the last issue of X-Men, number 10. I thumbed through it because I picked up one of the variant covers that was fantastic. And I started thumbing through the artwork, and I'm going, wow, this artwork, there's something more to this than just a another clone of every other artist that's out there today. And the artist was Nitho Diaz. And I'm going, wow, this is actually really good the more I looked at it and examined it. So I decided that I'm restarting my purchasing of the regular X-Men title right there, as Nitho Diaz looks like he's going to be the regular artist, at least for the next few issues upcoming. And then when I went back and looked, and I had missed it, he was actually the artist on issue number 4 as well, I guess filling in for Ryan Stegman. Now, of course, Stegman did the cover right there. So Ryan Stegman still gets on the title technically. So, but Nitho Diaz is doing the interiors, and honestly, I prefer his artwork over Ryan Stegman's at this point, and I will continue with this title moving forward. Now, I did not pre-order this, but I think I probably at least in issue number 3. This is Magic number 2. You've got the regular cover here with J. Scott Campbell, and that's always a really good cover, but the cover of the week this week, the hottest cover out there that isn't just porn comics like you're seeing all over the place these days, was the variant cover by Villalobos right there. I spent the whole last weekend looking at Whatnot and every channel out there that was going on they were broadcasting during and after MegaCon. Was so much Phil Lobos channels. Everybody was doing signings with him, and he was doing live signings. And if you didn't have him on the channel, you had a ton of these variants from this cover right there. Metal variants, foil variants, virgin variants, and signed by Lobos, and they were just selling like hotcakes. And honestly, I would love to have one of those. This right there might be my favorite Lobos cover so far, and he has had a lot that I've talked about over the last 6 months. Fantastic stuff. This is a super hot cover. I've kind of wanted to get one of those covers off one of those Whatnot channels, but I have really pulled off of Whatnot. I haven't ordered anything since last August at this point, which is good for my wallet. But I was so tempted as I was watching some of these channels really pump up all the Phil Lobos artwork and signatures that were going out there. All right. Next up is Marvel Mutts number 1, and this is strictly as a collector getting number 1s. I wasn't going to get this, but then I remember that thing is you might as well go ahead and pick up something like this when it's still cover price, plus having a pull box at Third Eye, I got 10% off, and you never know, it might be some key first appearance of some sort, I don't know. But as a collector, I don't mind having the number 1 in the PC. But there are definitely some books out there that I have picked up these number 1s just because they were number 1s. But once I read them, I'm going, wow, they're so good. And the next one is a really good example. I picked up Aquaman number 1 by Jeremy Adams. And I'm going, wow, this is really good. And the artwork by John Timms was really good. I'm like, where has this been? And I guess it's because I'm such a Marvel head that I don't really get into too much of the DC other than some of the Batman books and occasionally some of the number 1s, and of course the absolute stuff I kind of bought into. But I had heard somebody talk about Aquaman number 1 being really good, and I'm going, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's a number 1 as a collector. Again, I don't mind picking it up, but once I opened it up, I'm going, wow, this is actually really good. And I keep hearing, a little bird on my shoulder keeps telling me how good Jeremy Adams is on everything he touches at DC. Well, I decided to continue with Aquaman right here, and the interior artwork by John Timms is fantastic. And I'm seeing, this is a theme going over multiple weeks now. I'm starting to see better and better artwork, and I don't know what's going on exactly, but I can complain. Having better artwork is good. There's still some stinkers out there, but this right there, this is really good, and it looks like it's an interesting story, so I definitely enjoyed this. I thumbed through the whole book, and I didn't do that with every one of these, but I did with this because the artwork was so impressive in the first issue. I did it with the second issue as well. All right, next up was a recommendation from one of my fellow Third Eyers. They had said this was also a key first appearance, and I'm one of the new Green Lanterns, and I'm not really sure, but I think it is this young girl right up here at the top. And forgive me, I don't know the name, but this is also by Jeremy Adams, so I didn't have a hard time picking up this as a new number 1. All right, look at that. We ran out of room a second time. That's going to be another theme going on here. All right, so another theme in this has already been that I'm picking up books to get signed at some of the upcoming signings at Third Eye Comics. Well, I picked up the facsimile to Amazing Spider-Man 129, the first appearance of the Punisher and the Jackal. Only because I definitely want to have some really good copies of this, and I may actually have to break out my original copy of 129. I've got a 5.0 that's graded that I might have to break out. Jerry Conway is actually going to be at Heroes Con come this June, and I've only seen him do signings, private signings with CBCS, and I didn't want to send it in for that. Honestly, I don't want anything graded by CBCS at this point, but he's going to be down at Heroes Con, and that gives me the opportunity to take something to get signed. So that, like I said, I may break out my graded 129, but I may also take a couple of the variants here, the facsimiles as well. We'll see. Roy Thomas is going to be there as well, so he was the editor on this, so I may get him to sign it as well. We'll find out at that point. All right, continuing on, another recommendation was Batman and Robin, the new ongoing title. And let me give you my source for my recommendations on this and a couple of the other books in here as well. But mostly this was from Thinking Critical. It's a pretty big YouTube channel. It's a great channel if you guys have not checked that out. But they did a show recently. We're talking about the top 10 ongoing titles. And I'm not talking about books like from Mark Miller, who does a lot of 5 or 6 issue miniseries. Those come and go, but ongoing titles. And in that list, of course, I watched that list read out loud just to see if he was going to include Conan from Titan Comics, which he did. He made that the number 3 title in that whole list. But there were some recommendations in there that just were not on my radar. And this right here, Batman and Robin, the current run, definitely was. And part of that, it's not a hard sell for me either, is that the writer on this issue and the last few issues has been Philip Kennedy Johnson. And that's somebody I've mentioned on the channel before, having met him at Third Eye Comics and then again at the Baltimore Comic Con last year. I'm kind of a fan of his work, whether it was on Aliens or whether it was still on The Incredible Hulk. He's been writing this for the last 3 or 4 issues. And as I said, this was highly recommended. So I decided to pick this up. And I went back to the first issue that he wrote on this line, and that was number 15. Now, this is a variant cover. They didn't have the regular, but I wanted to go ahead and pick this up. And so I will sit down and give these a chance, and I'll read them out loud. We'll see if it's worth picking up the other issues or not. We'll find out. All right, we also talked about signings. We keep talking about signings going on at Third Eye. Well, they just announced coming, I believe, in either March or April. I'm not sure the date yet, but the writer Ben Percy is going to be at Third Eye. So his latest issue of Deadpool and Wolverine came out, and I would have picked this up anyway, but it put him on the radar. Hey, I know I've got some of his other bigger books. I don't have all of them, but there are some other books I would love to get signed that are literally just sitting right there on the current new comics, or I guess just say the recent new comics on the wall at Third Eye. Not the new comic books this week, but the new comic books over the last year, or sometimes 2 years. And I'm going, okay, well, let me go see if I can find some things. Well, that one just came out, and this one was still on the stands. It's the first issue to the current Deadpool and Wolverine line. So I've got that to get signed. They also had Ghost Rider, Final Vengeance, something I had not picked up before. And he's a big writer on the recent Ghost Rider books, and I don't know how far that extends. Haven't been reading that myself, but I picked up this number 1. And I picked up the first issue of Wolverine. That's not the first appearance. That was, I believe, in Wolverine. What issue was that? Like 36 or something. I had dropped Wolverine on the former run of that title, so I didn't have that. But this is the first issue in his ongoing series. So I've got those for that signing coming up. I'll have to go through some of my back issue bins at the storage unit to be able to find some of the older books that he's worked on. I know when they relaunched the whole X-Men line a couple years ago with Jonathan Hickman, I believe he was a writer on X-Force, and I may have to go back and try to find those books. I may try to get some of those issues signed as well. All right, something else that had just come in, even though it was late. They had just gotten copies of these. This was Fantastic Four 28. This is the Galactus Rivals cover right there from Peach Momoko. And you go online right now, and I think the cheapest I could find this, minus shipping, was about $8. And then it just started going up from there on $10, $14, $15, $20, $25. And they actually had a few copies of this for cover price. So I picked up a copy of that. Probably should have picked up all the ones I saw there, but it's fine. I picked up the one that I wanted. Now, there are only a few titles left. I did pick up this. This is new #1 from this week, The Hive. Don't know much about that, but at this point, you see all the #1s I was picking up anyway. I was going, I might as well go ahead and try a couple of these. You never know when some of these very independent titles from Image or whoever come out like this. They may stick, they may get optioned, you never know. And having looked through the books themselves, the art looked really good and everything. This is The Hive, and The Hive is A.J. Lieberman's writing it. Mike Henderson, I believe, is doing the artwork, and it looked pretty good, so we'll read that and see what that's about. And I did the same thing with Mine is a Lonesome Grave #1 from Oni Press, and this is Justin Jordan writing this. And again, this is looked really interesting. The art will look really good, and I did a little bit of the reading on the preview to this, and it takes place in West Virginia. And I'm going, okay, let's see what they do to pull in any West Virginia reference, if it's real or they're just using it as a placeholder for their story. I don't know, but I found that interesting being from West Virginia myself. And then lastly, the new issue of Flash Gordon had just come out this week, issue #6. And going back to Thinking Critical, to his recommendations for the top 10 ongoing titles, Flash Gordon was one of those books. And I'm going, well, I'd seen it come out, but honestly, I didn't give it a second thought. I mean, I was a fan of Flash Gordon, the old-time radio shows. I remember the comic strips, and I've gotten books where they've serialized the comic strips together. But I didn't give it much thought. I didn't really care. I never cared for the movie from the late 70s. Just not my thing. Or was that early 80s? Just not my thing. So I didn't think anything about this book, but highly recommended by Thinking Critical. And I'm going, okay, well, let's take a look. And yes, issue #6 came out this week, but I decided to go to the recent back issues again at Third Eye to see if they've got issue #1 that came out. And they did. And here we go. Another theme for this week. Jeremy Adams is writing this book. And the artwork looked really good in here. It's Chris Sheehan. I'm looking at my notes. I can't read my own writing. Sheehan. And the artwork looks really nice as well. So I may end up, I want to read this and then see if I want to pick up the other issues in this story. There's only 6 issues so far, so that's not too bad about picking up some back issues. All right, so that is it. Thank you for joining me today. You guys will have to let me know what you think about all the books I picked up. Are these books that you are picking up? Are these books that you enjoy? You have to let me know by leaving me a comment in the comment section down below. And if you enjoy this kind of content, definitely hit that like, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any of the content that I put out each and every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3 p.m. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a great day. I'll see you on Friday. Until then, remember, every comic has a story.